All right, let's jump right in and talk about a problem that pretty much every IT pro has to deal with. How in the world do you move huge amounts of data into the cloud? We're going to look at two big players here, AWS DataSync and Azure's Data Box Gateway. But here's the twist. We're not going to treat them like they're just competitors. Instead, we're going to look at them as two totally different ways of thinking, what I call the mover and the bridge.
Okay, for real though, if you've ever had to move, say, a terabyte of data, let alone a petabyte, which is just a mind-boggling amount, you know it's a total nightmare. It's not just that it's slow, you're worried about security, you're worried about the data getting corrupted, and it just takes forever. It is a massive operational headache. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll dig into why this is such a challenge in the first place. Then we'll meet our two main players, AWS DataSync, our mover, and Azure Data Box Gateway, the bridge. We'll put them side by side to see how they stack up, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly which tool is the right one for your job. So why is this so hard? I mean, why can't we just, drag and drop a folder into the cloud and call it a day? Well, because when we're talking about a company's data, a simple copy-paste is just asking for trouble. This is the digital lifeblood of your business we're talking about, and moving it requires a level of security and precision that your everyday tools just don't have. Companies today are dealing with all sorts of data headaches. They're trying to migrate these enormous databases. They need rock-solid backups. They have to share huge files with teams all over the world. And in this hybrid cloud world we live in, where some stuff is on-prem and some is in the cloud, just keeping it all synced up is a full-time job. And you have to do all of this just to get the data into a place where you can actually analyze it and get some value from it. So how do you handle all that? Well, this is where our first tool comes in, AWS DataSync. I want you to think of DataSync as a team of elite professional movers. The kind that shows up and can pack your entire house in just a few hours. That's DataSync. Its whole purpose in life is to pick up your data, all of it, and move it to its destination, fast and secure.
And if you look at the official description, those three words really tell the whole story. Simplifies, automates, and accelerates. Simplify means you're not messing around with complex scripts. Automate means you can set it up once and just let it run. And accelerate? Well, that just means your data gets where it's going way, way faster.
So how does it actually work? It's pretty smart. First, you install this little piece of software called an agent on one of your servers. Then you go into AWS and you create a task. It's basically just telling DataSync, hey, see all this data over here? I need you to move it over there. And that's it. DataSync takes over, breaks your data into smaller chunks, encrypts it, compresses it, and just blasts it over the internet. And the whole time, you can watch its progress using AWS CloudWatch, which is like a real-time dashboard for the whole operation. And this is where DataSync really shines. I mean, we're talking up to 10 times faster than the old ways of doing things. Think about a transfer that used to take all day, now finishing up before lunch. It's also really smart. It automatically checks to make sure every single file made it over perfectly. But honestly, the coolest part? DataSync can actually reach into other clouds, like Azure, and pull data from there directly into AWS. It's not just a mover, it's a data teleporter. Okay, but what if you're not trying to do a big one-time move? What if what you really need is a permanent, seamless link between your office and the cloud? Well, that's where our second tool comes into play, Azure's Data Box Gateway. If DataSync is the mover, then think of this as the bridge. It's a permanent structure that connects your local world to the cloud world. It's not about a single trip. It's about creating a highway for your data to travel back and forth. The key here is that phrase, virtual device. This isn't just an app you install. You actually set up a whole virtual machine in your own data center using something like Hyper-V or VMware. So it's kind of like you have a little embassy for the Azure cloud living right there on your own network. And here's the genius of it. The Data Box Gateway basically tricks your network. It makes a storage location way out in the Azure cloud look like it's just another file server sitting in the room next door. So your apps, your users, they don't even know they're accessing the cloud. And that's huge, because it means you don't have to change your old apps or retrain anyone. It's just seamless. So how does it pull off this magic trick? Well, there are three parts. You've got the virtual appliance, which is the brain. Then it speaks the languages that your local network already understands, protocols like SMB, which is what Windows uses, and NFS for Linux. And finally, it translates all that local network chatter into the language of the cloud, storing everything safely on the back end in Azure. It's the ultimate translator between your old world and the new one. All right, so we've met the mover and we've met the bridge.
Now it's time to put them side by side, because even though they both deal with data, they're really designed for two completely different jobs. And knowing that difference is everything.
And really, it all comes down to this. DataSync is for a specific task. You tell it to move something, it moves it, and the job is done. It's mission-based. Data Box Gateway, on the other hand, is a permanent fixture. It's an always-on connection. Think of it this way. DataSync is like hiring a moving company to move you to a new house. Data Box Gateway is like building a permanent bridge from your old house to the new one.
And if we look at the details, you can see how different they are. DataSync's goal is migration. The gateway's goal is access. DataSync is a small software agent. The gateway is a whole virtual appliance. But look at that last row, typical use. That says it all. DataSync is for bulk transfers. The gateway is for ongoing, everyday access to cloud data. It's a totally different way of thinking.
So now for the million-dollar question. Which one should you use? How do you decide if you need the mover or the bridge? Well, it's all about matching the right tool to the job at hand.
So let's start with our mover. When is it time to call in the heavy-duty muscle of AWS DataSync?
You're going to want to reach for DataSync when you have a massive, one-time migration to do. It's also your secret weapon if you're trying to move data between clouds, say from Azure over to AWS. And it's perfect for those scheduled, recurring jobs, like sending backups to the cloud every night, or for moving old data you don't need anymore into cheaper archive storage. But what if you're not planning a big move? What if you want to connect what you have now to the cloud? When should you build that permanent bridge with Azure's Data Box Gateway?
The gateway is your best friend when you want the cloud to just feel like an extension of your data center. You can use it to get basically unlimited storage without buying new hardware. It's perfect for letting your older applications access data in the cloud without having to rewrite them. And if your goal is to build a truly hybrid environment where users don't even know or care where the files are, the gateway is the way to go.
But here's a little pro tip for you. This isn't always an either-or choice. In fact, the mover and the bridge can actually work together. Check this out. You can use AWS DataSync to do that huge one-time move to get all your data into the cloud. And then you can set up a storage gateway to give your local apps that permanent, easy access to all that data you just moved. It's the best of both worlds. The mover does the heavy lifting, and the bridge gives you the easy access for the long term.
So at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. You can forget about the product names and all the marketing and just ask yourself one question. Am I planning a one-time data move? Or am I trying to build a permanent bridge to my data? Once you answer that, you'll know exactly which tool you need. Thanks for tuning in.